Who am I and who are you? I can vividly remember that the first time I became aware of the depth of this question was when I was 15 years old and I was reading a book which just happened to be lying around my house, which was entitled Reincarnation-The Boy Lama. And this book talked about the story of a Tibetan spiritual teacher called Lama Yeshe and his adventurous life trajectory as an internationally revered spiritual teacher of his time. But the most fascinating aspect of this book was the fact that the entire essence of the story revolved around the concept of reincarnation, like the topic of the book suggested, and the second half of the story covered the life of a small Spanish boy who was one of the first Western child to be designated as a tulku, which means the reincarnation of a Tibetan Lama in the Tibetan language. And in this case, he was supposedly the reincarnation of Lama Yeshe. Now, regardless of whether people believe in the concept of reincarnation or not, one of the ideas that stuck with me the most from this book was from a chapter which was designated to the final moments of Lama Yeshe's life in a hospital, where one of his students cannot seem to contain his grief in that chapter upon seeing that his teacher's once healthy body was deteriorating so rapidly as Lama Yeshe inched closer and closer towards death, to which Lama Yeshe responds by asking him, "Who are you grieving for? Am I this flesh? Am I this body?" To insinuate the idea that even though his physical form had changed drastically for the worse, his self-identity didn't have anything to do with whether his body was in a healthy state, a youthful state, an elderly state, or even terminally ill. And this teaching recently resurfaced again in the conscious part of my memory because I was thinking about life and how we tend to attach our identity to our ever-changing bodies, which is constantly progressing from the form of a baby to a child, a youth, an elderly person, and to eventually exit from this human experience. And yet the core essence that represents our self-identification with ourselves always seems to remain constant. For example, if I were to teleport my consciousness back to the time when I was a 4-year-old child or a 15-year-old girl reading this very book in this very house, then the way in which I was self-aware about my own identity as a person remains absolutely unaffected by the timeline or the body through which I was experiencing myself. And throughout the years, the only thing that has remained a constant in my life, despite all the other external changes around me, is my consciousness or the way I experience my sense of self. And the reason why I wanted to make a video on this topic is because if we were to get people to ask themselves the question, "Who am I?" then it's very likely that most people will try to attach their identity to their physical form or their body, their name, their face, their gender, their nationality, and some people might also try to define their identity through their achievements by saying that they are a doctor or a supermodel or a successful writer. But at the end of the day, if we are to strip all these external labels, milestones, and societal benchmarks away, then we will find that our sense of self is intrinsically unaffected by all these external attachments because it will still exist. And the only way our qualifications, our idea of success, wealth, our physical form plays a role in structuring our identity is because we have collectively agreed to build an entire society around these value systems, and we are actually encouraged to assign as many values to our identity through psychological feedback loops that we get from our society. This is also one of the reasons why I think there's so much of anxiety, stress, and depression in the world today, because people are constantly bombarded with so much of pressure to meet certain milestones or achievements during a particular timeline in their lives, to prove to themselves and everybody else that they are somebody or something in life, and they have some certificate or credential that now gives them the permission to feel good about who they are or what they've become. And while it might sound easier said than done, if we were to internalize the idea that our achievements in life is a social and mental construct rather than it being the entire reality of who we are, then maybe people wouldn't be so keen in rushing through their entire life chasing one milestone after the other, never taking any time to even sit with themselves and ask, why? Or who am I? So before ending this video, I want to share one of my favorite quotes by Lama Yeshe, where he said, "At certain times, a silent mind is very important, but silent does not mean closed. The silent mind is an alert, awakened mind, a mind seeking the nature of reality, and therefore a mind that I think is also seeking to answer the question, who am I?" So this is all that I wanted to share today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope all of you are going to have a great week ahead. Namaste.